this whole situation's brought a lot out in the open in terms of who you can trust and how people do just do whatever they're told to do. So I guess the main thing is just about using the brain that you've got in your head and thinking critically if you can, and not letting go of, you know, your independence and your independent thought, because that's what most people do. They just kind of go along with whatever's trending, whatever's normal.
Absolutely.
Like this notion of liberty, for example. What is liberty?
And I think that concept of the will is very important.
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet? What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
Bitcoin will not work as digital gold.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.
Everyone deserves the same chance, the same treatment, the same respect.
Boom shakalaka, and we are live. That's fucking hilarious. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm broadcasting right now on TikTok, and obviously I'm doing this recording offline as well to be going up on YouTube. What's interesting is I couldn't actually start the live TikTok feed because I was using the name Dick Jones, and apparently your name is inappropriate for TikTok.
Yeah.
So it actually wouldn't allow me to start. They wanted to have me remove that phrase, but it's so representative of who you are, Dick Jones, because you're one of these characters that is so outrageously awesome but offensive. It's like people either love you or they find you just too much.
Yep. Or
This
hate
is
me,
what,
yep.
ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my friend Dick Jones.
What's
He
cracking?
is a rapper. He is an actor, a content creator. He is an activist, a patriot, and he's just an downright crazy person. You know, I will say that you were one of the craziest people that I know. And coming from me, I mean, my friends used to call me Crazy K. That's a big deal, bro. Because you're next level, man. Dick,
Yeah.
don't be confused by Dick Jones' sweet countenance. This guy gets out of hand all the time, you know. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my podcast. We're broadcasting this live to the interwebs on TikTok. We got some familiar faces in the house. What's happening, Sky? What's happening, peeps? This is the Crystal Journey podcast. Usually I'm serenading the senoritas on this, you know, trying to smooth talk the ladies. But this time I'm going to be dropping the wisdomatic truth bombs. We're going to be getting deep. We're going to be talking about conspiracies, talking about what's going on in the world, talking about dating, talking about Dick. Well, Dick Jones, not dicks per se, but we probably will end up talking about dicks with Dick Jones. Probably a whole bunch of inappropriate things. So buckle up. This shit is about to get real. Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like this. This is going to go on YouTube. Subscribe. Tell your mom. Tell your friends. You can find this podcast on Spotify, iTunes. You know the drill. You can support me on Patreon. You can review this on iTunes. Thank you, everyone that has been doing so, reviewing this. I really appreciate it. I've been checking out the reviews on iTunes lately, and it really warms the inner sanctums of my soul when I see people talking about how much they hate me and how I talk too much on my podcast. But no, I appreciate every review. It really helps get my podcast out there. But without further ado, ladies and gents, freaks and geeks, brothers and sisters around the world, I want to introduce you to Dick Jones, the rapper, singer. Well, you do everything, man. You're the quintessential entertainer. But do you want to tell us a bit about yourself? I've spoken long enough.
Sure. So I'm Dick Jones. My name's obviously Richard, so you know, Richard means Dick. I do a bit of this, bit of that. But I mean, Crystal reckons I'm a bit crazy. I don't reckon I'm that crazy, but I might be. I guess I can't see myself half the time and the things that I might say. But I mean, Crystal to me is a lot crazier. You know,
that's ridiculous,
you've got
bro.
the crazy personality. Both of us are pretty crazy. Let's be honest. We're the opposites.
But you got the Jekyll and Clyde thing going on, bro. Jekyll and Hyde, is that the book?
I think so,
And I know you don't let me bring this up, bro. But you're crazy enough as it is. But when you go out on an all-nighter and you get your magic potion into you, bro, you become a completely different person. And I have to pull you aside. In fact, I've had to kick this guy out of my house a few times, more than a few times.
Yeah.
I still love you, but bro, you're next level. Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Jones has a single out at the moment. Bro, I really enjoyed your last single.
Yeah, thanks, man.
What was it called?
It's called Who Said I Can't Say That.
That is so appropriate, man.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like it's really aimed at, what's going on at the moment and not being able to say what you want to say. So that was the point of the song. I did make it about 2 years ago. It was just as relevant now as it was back then, but it's even more relevant now. Yeah, definitely, because you're getting people censored left, right and centre. But it's just essentially a dig at not being allowed to say what you want to say. Because of, censorship and having to fit into a certain box. So I think that's something that is definitely, being attacked at the moment.
Shimmy up over here so I can see it.
Yeah, I think that it's something that we need to protect, because once the freedom of speech and the ability to say what you want, no matter how offensive it is, goes out the window, then, we're fucked.
Absolutely. And look, you guys can think what you want, and you should be able to say what you want as well. But I'm telling you, we're reaching a point now where that privilege is going to be something of the past. I mean, just recently, I'm sure a lot of you people are aware that the censorship has been taken to a new level. I mean, people are getting taken off this thing for even speaking their own experiences. I mean, I've had friends that have been taken off of or gotten strikes on YouTube because they've spoken about their own experiences with certain magic potions and whatnot, which I won't go into because of the censorship. Once again, this all comes down to the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I have to talk to you guys in code right now, because if I was to say certain things about what's going on, obviously TikTok would take me down. But hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. Someone just mentioned they got banned recently, right? And it's not like getting banned because you're showing like dick pictures or something like that, which we would have done back in the day, right? No,
that's normal.
Yeah, but no, we're getting banned now because hell, have a look what's happened to Cobra Tate. Look, I'm not saying I support this guy, but I mean, I believe that people should have the right to express their ideas, even if they're reprehensive. And I don't agree with them. I mean, that's the whole idea of freedom of speech. But this guy, in the most beautiful Orwellian fashion, has been taken off of, I think he was never on TikTok to begin with, but been taken off Instagram, YouTube. He had his PayPal service or some kind of financial service shut down, his service shut down, all pretty much in the same time. And it shows that there is basically a massive movement now where the powers to be are cracking down on us.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a perfect example. Just the things he was saying were very offensive to, like you said, the powers that be. And, he's encouraging men to be, to stand up for themselves and to look for their masculinity, essentially, and to, find their purpose in life, which is something that's been taken away from a lot of men these days without them knowing it.
Sure.
Which is very, I think, wrong and upsetting that there's so many people out there that have just lost their purpose without even knowing it. A lot of men, a lot of women too, because of the way that roles have been shifted and the way we've been told that roles are now, that roles have gone out the door. There's no left or right.
Yeah, masculinity has become something of the past. I mean, a lot of the population can't even tell you what a man is now, objectively, in terms of sexuality. It's like the whole idea of gender roles has been completely obfuscated. Now, what is it to be a woman? Well, I mean, not that long ago, back in my time,
What is it to be a woman?
Men had penises and women had vaginas. Wait, can I say that on TikTok? I can say the technical word, right?
Well, now you got women that got tits as well. Yeah.
Well, you can't use tits. It's funny how there's certain words you can use, like...
Well...
It's like, it means the same thing. Like, I can't use the word dick, right?
Clearly. My name's Dick, so you should be able to use it.
But you can't. But for some reason, I mean, I'd imagine I should be able to use the word
You can use the
penis.
word dick. You can use the word dick.
But I think the scientific pronunciation, like, for some reason, it's not as offensive. But as soon as you say something like dick, or you say something like, I don't know, pussy or something like that, I mean, it offends people.
Well, some women have dicks.
Yeah, well, anyway, that was my point, right? Apparently,
that's what we're saying.
Some women have dicks now, and it's become very blurred. So just the whole concept of masculinity and femininity, it's like men don't know what they're supposed to be. And look, don't get me wrong, Cobra Tate, like, granted a lot of his stuff is, performance art, but he was saying some pretty foul shit, I get that. But the whole idea is that just because I don't like something doesn't mean someone shouldn't be able to say it. And everyone brings up the topic of hate speech, all this kind of stuff. I'm for freedom of speech, but I'm not for hate speech. Well, technically speaking, I know most people don't understand the whole, concept of freedom of speech. But yeah, hate speech, it's supposed to be inclusive of hate speech as well. I mean, unless, of course, you're inciting violence. I mean, this is classically within the Constitution. This is within the realm of law. Yeah, unless you're actually directly inciting violence, like calling fire in a crowded theater, that kind of stuff, you should be able to express yourself.
Definitely. Absolutely. You should be allowed to say whatever you want.
Absolutely. Because, look, I know there are going to be a lot of people that disagree with this, like a lot of people that have been affected by racism, or bigotry, and so forth, and they don't feel people should be able to express that. I've obviously experienced that, and, you come from one of the most, racially charged parts of the world. You're a fellow African. This is another thing you didn't know about Dick Jones. Did you see a lot of that stuff going on when you were in South Africa?
Definitely. I mean, the whole place is it's called the Rainbow Nation for a reason, because there's so many different cultures there, and so many different colors, essentially. Different cultures make up different colors, and not only that, the environment and the animals, and it's the most beautiful place in the world, but also one of the most violent places in the world because of many different issues.
Sorry, man, we got a hot girl calling us. That's the thing about TikTok. You get distracted with all of these calls. It's about you now.
She wants to join the conversation.
Yeah, because it's not going to come through on the other recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, bro.
No worries. But yeah, it's one of the most. Yeah, man, it's it's the Rainbow Nation, and yeah, I mean, there's still so many issues today that are happening over there, and some people on one side will say that it's the fault of the white man, and then some people on the other side will say it's the fault of the black man. Some people will say it was the white man that went there and took from the black man, and some people will say that, the black man did something to the white man. It's always like that, and it's always going to be like that wherever you go. I think, unfortunately, these issues. A lot of people who aren't to blame, who are just normal people, innocent people living their lives that haven't had anything to do with the politics in the background. That's the majority of people. People just get sucked into the politics because that's what they're told.
What do you think about? Someone just asked here. It's just mentioned that it's the white man for sure that's causing these problems. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know this goes down to history, and a lot of people are not familiar with what's happening now, and also what's happened in the past in regards to this topic. Because look, obviously, I'm from Ghana, West Africa, very different history, but I've had some experience with racism. But I will tell you that the kind of stuff that I'm seeing in South Africa, it's on a whole new level. You have black people openly calling for the death of whites there. Like there's this figure, I can't remember his name, that was basically saying that, look, you guys need to get the hell out of this country, otherwise we're going to kill you. And it's become
Mugabe, maybe.
Yeah, and it's become so normalized there because so many people are used to seeing racism, being conducted. I think within the Western, world, a lot of people have this mindset that racism is something where black people are the minority and they're being discriminated against and so forth. But in South Africa, the black people are the majority, last time I checked. And it's the black people now, at least in recent history, that are actually going out and killing white people because they don't like the fact that they're on these farms and so forth.
You've got two sides. You've got the side where you did have a certain percentage of white government at the time that were pushing for essentially the supremacy of the white race and the separation between white and black, and that definitely existed. The apartheid and there was a lot of wrongs done. That caused certain things to happen, and that's the other side of the argument is that, well, this was done to us, therefore this is allowed to happen back on the other side. But my point is neither two wrongs don't make a right, and neither side,
I was just going to make that point.
So there's a lot of innocent people getting caught in the middle that had nothing to do with either side, but people end up, based on their life experiences, becoming a certain way, becoming jaded sometimes because of what's been done to them. And then they will view another race or another person or another group in a certain way, obviously. And it's not as simple, like sometimes people just brush over the subject or politically correct, be politically correct in the way they jump over it and say, well, it's because of this, but it really is not that simple. There's so many little grey areas amongst so many different issues that you can't just put a finger on things.
Absolutely. This is a topic that causes a lot of discord within many of the friends that I have, because many of my friends are from different parts of the world. I don't do this thing where I only hang out with people that have my color. I'm a xenophile. The people that don't know what that means. It's not some kind of creepy weird guy into
I was gonna say
something like that. No, it's basically I love people of all different races, but I love meeting people that are different from me, that look differently to me, because I probably learn something. And I find that when I'm around, particularly people of let's say my background, they have a very strong attitude when it comes to racism. Like I was dating a girl one time, and she literally could not stand being around white people. And the point that she would always bring up is the fact that these people, their ancestors, were responsible for this. And my whole attitude is that, look, I never picked any cotton, and you never owned any slaves. So the idea of me like being complicit or feeling any kind of guilt for the shit that happened in the past, this is stuff that my ancestors did, or this is stuff that your ancestors were complicit in. And people are so caught up with buying into this attitude of making someone accountable for the actions of their ancestors. And as soon as you play that game, because this is what you were touching on, right? It's kind of like, well, what they did to us in the past, because the history of South Africa is fucked up, man. Like the whites for a long time had the worst discrimination policies, but it's like, well, okay, am I going to continue to make someone accountable for something that their ancestors did? I mean, if we play that game, we can go back and far back into history. There was a time where the black kings were actually enslaving the Slavic people. A lot of people don't realize that the first gangsters were the black people, the Moors. Look at your history. They enslaved the Slavic people. In fact, the word slave comes from Slav. And the conditions that the Slavic people endured were far worse than what the southern plantation owners put the Africans through. So if you go back far enough in history, you'll find that at some point, this thing has been reversed. Black people were treating white people badly, and more recently, the white people have, but things are turning around again. Now in South Africa, black people are being racist towards white people. So at some point, this thing's got to come to an end, right?
I think this will never end in any circumstance in the world because people are flawed, and we just see it come out in different ways. You know, we see it come out in the color of people's skin, and we see it come out through different genders, or we see it come out in so many different ways that people can have an issue with another human being.
But we get along.
We get along.
We've never had a racial issue ever.
It's how you look at the world. It's how you are as a person. You know what I mean? Like it's like you were saying. You're a, what was it? Something file.
Xenophile, absolutely. Because I love the fact that Dick Jones has this small penis and it's different than mine. You know, I love the differences about people. You know, and Dick Jones loves my big ass. We get along. You know, it doesn't have to be all kind of like, oh, you're different. You know, I can't hang out with you. Yeah, it's I mean, celebrate that.
Exactly. No one's judging anyone for being any sort of a file here. You know what I mean?
No, but look, I think if we learn to celebrate our differences, I think that's one of the ways to overcome the problem, you know? Because the fact of the matter is that we have a lot of differences, you know, in the way that we look and the way that our culture and so forth. But more importantly, we probably have far more commonalities. I mean, we're all living under the same skies. We all appreciate, you know, good food and music and dance. Well, at least my people do. Your people can't dance. And I'm playing. You know, I'm playing. Like at the end of the day, we have so much in common that the idea of focusing on what we don't have in common just seems kind of silly, right? But I'd say that if we learn to celebrate our differences and admire the things that we have in common, that's how we get over the whole problem of racism.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm just reading some of these comments.
Yeah, man. Try not to get distracted, otherwise it'll take you off. Like, you guys are saying amazing things. I'm going to read up on all this stuff maybe towards the end. We can answer your questions, but we got a lot of stuff we got to delve into. Yeah. Dick Jones, you are, you know, a lot of people don't realize this about you. We have a mutual friend, right? And, you know, it's funny because I had a housewarming party a while ago, and this girl wanted me to introduce her to all of these conscious people because I'm known as a bit of a conscious person, right? And I had all these friends that she wanted to meet, and she was looking forward to meeting people like you. But because she didn't get to experience this side of you, because she just saw you drunk with a magic potion, right? Yeah. She's like, what were you doing hanging out with that guy? That guy didn't seem very conscious. But people don't realize that there are so many different levels to you, right? Like, you're deep into philosophy, spirituality. You know, you have a very strong Christian ethic. You know, you're very passionate about that stuff. You have a very deep insights into the world. You know, we can go into transhumanism and all these other areas. And it's like people sometimes only see one side.
Transhumanism, transsexualism.
Absolutely. You know, they just see the funny, silly... Like, this is actually Dick Jones behaved right now. You should see him when he goes out. But I kind of want to uncover the crazy side of you, the more philosophical side of you, but people don't always get to experience, rather than talking about, you know, the Bitcoin and bitches and whatnot that we often talk about. So one of the things that I wanted to delve into is, well, we got to be careful about this. What's going on in the world right now, okay? Because we've never had a more divided time in the world. Don't buy into this, you know, we're all in this together, mate, nonsense. I mean, I would love it if we're all in this together, but there is a lot of discord amongst many different people in the world right now, not just with the racism, you know, on many different issues, be it abortion, be it toxic masculinity, or be it mandates. You know, I call them the boom shakalaka mandates, right? Because I can't even say the word without
getting buggered.
Yeah, exactly, bro. But there's a lot of divisiveness going on in the world right now. And one of the things I wanted to speak about, let's just be real about this, is what we've seen over the last couple of years. Like, we've seen something that is very unprecedented, you know, regardless of what your views may be in regards to, you know, the boom shakalaka 19 and whatnot. Like, in terms of the mandates, it seems to be so divisive. There are some people that feel as if it's necessary, and there are those of us that think, well, I would say, believe in the whole idea of choice, human rights, that you should be able to decide whether or not you get to take an experimental substance and so forth. And having said that, I absolutely believe it's the right of businesses and so forth to decide what kind of risk they want to take. But we've seen this weird situation lately. I don't know what it's like in your country, because we got people from different parts of the world, but lately the government has decided to come in and tell business owners, tell all these different organizations that they must mandate these experimental things and so forth. And it's crazy. Like, I've seen so many people, including myself, lose their jobs, not being able to work. We're both actors, right? Yeah. Now, the acting world is a world that is at the front line of this kind of stuff, you know? I mean, before the the rollout of the boom shakalaka, as I like to call them, they were like, I'd have to get tested basically every other day, you know, if I was wanted to do a job. They've gone all out. It's amazing what's happened now, right? Basically, it's kind of like you need to have the more jabs you've had, right, the more you'll be likely to be able to get into certain words. So it's kind of like, I always reference the yellow cards back in 1930s. Germany. Basically, the Jews would be stamped with a yellow card, and that was supposed to show that they were mocked and they were kind of like the unclean. And the same has applied with the boom shakalaka mandates, the vaccine mandates. Essentially, you can't get work now unless you've had maybe 1 or 2 jabs, or if it's a really important job, you need to have had 4 jabs.
What's the sodomy mandate?
It's the sodomy.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and it just goes.
It's being sodomized.
Absolutely, and it just goes on. I mean, I actually was considering leaving the country. In fact, truth be told, I was on the verge of going back to my hometown, Ghana, West Africa, purely because I couldn't even enter a hospital. Oh, we got Yoda, a singer, trying to contact me, but I'm going to have to decline because we got a podcast going on here for another time. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you can't even, I mean, I thought hospitals were all about, you know, compassion and not discriminating. Like, if someone's dying, doctors are usually like, oh, I don't want to touch that. They're not supposed to be like, I don't want to touch that person because I'm going to get sick. They're like, I'm a doctor, you know, I must try to save them. But we now got the situation where you can't even, doctors will refuse you just because you haven't had a magic potion. And it is the most discriminatory thing that I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrible that they've even put people through that. But I've now seen that there's a new doctors' union opening that they're starting. Have you seen that? That the doctors and the nurses are starting their own union so that this doesn't happen again, because the trust between the patient and the doctor has completely gone out the window now. There's no trust there anymore, and there's a lot of trust that's been lost amongst a lot of industries. I'd say now that's been destroyed. You know, that would be the health industry, scientific fields as well. And, you know, who do you trust? I guess this whole situation's brought a lot out in the open in terms of who you can trust and how people just do whatever they're told to do. So I guess the main thing is just about using the brain that you've got in your head and thinking critically if you can, and not letting go of, you know, your independence and your independent thought, because that's what most people do. They just kind of go along with whatever's trending, whatever's normal.
Absolutely. You're familiar with mass formation, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to, before I go into that, someone just asked, haven't the mandates helped? And I would love to delve into this stuff. There's a lot that Dick Jones and I could go into, but we can't because of the whole concept of censorship right now. You say anything that goes against the narrative, and essentially you'll get flagged. And as much as I love talking about this stuff, I like my TikTok account way too much to want to risk that stuff, you know. But I will tell you, like with most issues in the realm of science, or any issue for that matter, there are many diverging thoughts on this, and it's interesting to note that many of the consensus ideas have very much changed, but because of the nature of the media, we're just not hearing about it, or they're not being published in the mainstream news because you know these people don't want to have egg on their faces and so forth. But there are a lot of answers to these questions. That's why it's so important for people to look outside of the mainstream sources for information. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, look, I get my news from the mainstream because I trust them." Look, mate, yeah, I don't listen to like conspiracy theories and whatnot, but unfortunately, when these major platforms have been hijacked, right? Because essentially, what's happened is that you have these powerful industries, and this isn't conspiracy theory. This is
straight fact.
This was well known before any of this stuff happened, right? Basically, you have these incredibly powerful organizations. They're called pharmaceutical companies, right? They own trillions of dollars, and it's basically what they do is they have an interest in selling their product. Whoopee! All right. So it's funny now that we have organizations like, you know, the CDC and World Health Organization, and CDC is basically a vaccine company, right? It's fundamentally owned by vaccine companies, and then you have the World Health Organization that takes much of their donations from pharmaceutical companies and so forth. Now these organizations are actually making mandates, right? And it's crazy because if I had a company, obviously I would love to mandate something so people had to buy my product. Do you see what's going on there? And granted, you could say that they're doing it in the best interest of the entire world and so forth. It's a conflict of interest when you have a situation where someone stands to gain so much from putting their product out there. And I'm not saying anything else. All I'm saying is that conflict of interest, just on the very surface level, is a big problem. And that is very much what we are seeing at the moment. We are seeing this capitalist mentality where organizations that stand to benefit a lot from putting their product out there are doing just that. And interestingly enough, I don't think they're being held accountable.
What do you think about that comment? Most medications from pharmaceutical companies save lives.
I vehemently disagree with that. I would say if you actually have a look at the leading cause of deaths in the world, you'll find that they're actually misprescribed drugs. How about that? And many of these things are, well, pharmaceutical drugs. And whereas people say that, you know, and look, I will be real with you, 100% pharmaceutical drugs have the power to actually alleviate a lot of problems. And the way that the industry works, essentially, but this is also a problem. It's all about extending life. So whereas they may not be addressing the heart of the problem, there are situations where we want to keep people alive, and sometimes the best option if you want to keep these people alive is to put these drugs into them. The problem is they have many side effects, and in the long term, granted, it may start, you know, kind of like keep the death at bay, but it's going to have all these other symptoms. And then, of course, people have complications with a lot of these drugs and so forth. And more importantly, when you have a look at the system where doctors are essentially getting incentives, kickbacks, in order to prescribe these drugs, then you have a situation where the whole thing is being skewed here. You know, like these drugs are getting to people that don't necessarily need them, but they're getting them because the doctors are getting a kickback. And then you have these patients suffering a whole bunch of complications. But of course, it's rarely attributed to the pharmaceutical drugs because, well, that's just the nature of the industry. Because as long as these pharmaceutical companies have the power, then they're going to try to obfuscate the reality so that they can sell more of their products, rather than acknowledging that they've done something wrong. Anyway, I think we spent. I don't want to jeopardize my TikTok account, so perhaps we can. I want to bring this back to you because I've been running my mouth as I do for the last half hour or so. And Dick Jones, I want to talk about you. You mentioned you got a new single out, which I think is freaking amazing, man.
Thanks, bro.
Say the name of it again for me.
Who said I can't say?
Who said I can't say? That's freaking dope, bro. Ladies and gentlemen,
Dick Jones. Who said
check
I can't
it out.
say
You remember the name, Dick Jones. Who said I can't say
I
that?
had to forget about it.
It's the lyrics are dope, and it's got a funky.
I mean, it's not. It's a really good track in regards to what it's talking about, and it's got a sick beat, and you know, it goes hard, just like, you know, my name.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Absolutely. Have you done any performances? I mean,
Not
what am I saying?
recently,
Yeah.
not recently, but I will be soon. I'm planning on doing that quite soon. I just
Yeah.
need to get all of that organized. But yeah, I was previously when I first
Mm-hmm.
was releasing music a while back. I was doing a lot of performance, but just about getting back into it. It's been hard, obviously, over 2 years when we couldn't do anything and go anywhere. So I'm trying to now, get back in touch with the venues to actually do more performances, essentially.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. It's been tough being an artist over the last couple of years,
Yeah,
right? Because
definitely.
obviously art it's changed. Like most things, art develops, it morphs, it evolves, it changes. And granted, there was a time when people would go and see performances live. I think they still do that in some parts of the world. Now, a lot of the times you can't do that because of certain restrictions and so forth. And a lot of us have had to resort to other ways of sustaining ourselves. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why I jumped onto TikTok. So I could actually reach more people performing and doing what I love doing, because it's obviously become a little more tricky to do that stuff, right?
The problem with TikTok, obviously, is you can't strip, fully. You'd like to. You can.
Oh, there's actually a guy I was checking out that would take his shirt off all the time at every opportunity.
Yeah.
It's weird. So here's another double standard. Apparently, the girls can. The guys can take our shirt off on TikTok. But the ladies, how do you ladies feel about that? Do you feel like you should be able to take your shirt off? Because I'm all down for that. I'm all about freeing the nipple.
Well, are you allowed to show your pet snake?
No, I'm pretty sure you would not be able to show your pet snake, Dick Jones.
Okay. See, then that's fair.
But, yeah,
it's both on the same page here.
Because the thing about, let's talk about TikTok for a bit, because apparently obviously it's got a child-based kind of like demographic. Like apparently it's more popular with the kiddies, right? And
I'd say so.
I was gonna say something inappropriate, like that's why I'm on it. It's like,
Fuck.
no, but it's look, you definitely find that they're the people that are gonna buy more of your music. They're more enthusiastic about music, performance, all that kind of stuff. But what I really wanted to talk about is how TikTok is actually being used, apparently, to
reach kids.
Well, to monitor people. And what's interesting is that the algorithm changes from country to country. And in places like China, what the people there, the youth, see are inspirational videos about kids, winning maths competitions or excelling in athletics or something like that, right? Because the government wants them to focus on succeeding and actually representing China and so forth. But it's interesting to know that the algorithms, when you're looking at places like the United States and countries abroad, they're focused more on mindless things. Absolutely. Because obviously that's the way that they look at it. It's not something that is going to be of great benefit to the society.
It's crazy when you see what's on our main feeds and compared to what's on theirs. Yeah. It's
yeah.
Just like
just on individual
dumb
feeds.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny. It's entertaining, some of it. But it's a lot of it's stupid as. Like, it's the dumbest stuff, like some of these trends that start happening in these dances and whatever. Like you said, I mean, China can harness it for whatever they want,
What's your feed like, bro? I have a feeling that you
very
probably have
interesting. It's got. I'm
sure it is.
It's a funny sort of humor. The humor on there's quite funny. It's really my niche humor, which is exactly what I want. Which is why I love TikTok, because it really, knows your personality and puts it right in front of you.
Sure. But I feel like it's set up in a way for you to have a short attention span. The shorter videos. Kind of
Absolutely
hooks people. And it's created in a way now to kind of like essentially put you in this zombie state.
Yeah.
But look, I can't talk. I spend most of my time on this thing, and it's definitely made it a lot easier to contact, your audience. Yeah. And this is the changing times. Speaking about the changing times, let's talk about the future. Dick Jones, where do you see us headed in this new world order?
In the future, where do I see us headed? That's a great question. Well, look, probably eating bugs. Probably eating bugs and living in like a tiny little cell.
You know what's interesting? It's so appropriate you mention that, because one of the things I wanted to bring up is recently, in fact, just I want to say a few days ago, they have added in over 1,000 schools in Australia, right, bugs to snacks. Now, this is something which used to sound straight out of a science fiction movie. Now it's actually been introduced into the snacks of schools, because they're promoting that this is a more eco-friendly way of essentially feeding kids protein, right? Rather than all of these, animal agriculture systems that are obviously stress the resources and so forth and create greenhouse emissions. Well, if we can eat bugs, that's going to save the planet. And I'm like, how do you feel about that, Dick Jones?
Bugs, I wouldn't eat them.
Yeah.
I think eating bugs is, for other animals to do. Like, other animals eat bugs. Well, we shouldn't be eating bugs. But it's all about demoralizing us as people, honestly. That's what it's about. Like, I know some people eat bugs in some cultures, to be honest.
Yeah, Aberrant, what are you saying is wrong with them to eat their witchery grubs?
I mean, all for whoever wants to eat bugs, but I think the main group of say, people in normal societies, I'm not saying that it's not normal, but, living kind of the way we do in the West, don't want to eat bugs, and there's reasons for that. It's because of the way our diets are, and our bodies have become accustomed to eating certain things, and we need certain level of protein and nutrients that comes from meat. But I know Chrishell's a vegan, so he wouldn't necessarily agree with that either. But he gets his nutrition in other ways, which can come from protein. What else can you get protein from?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you're taking this along the lines of health and like what we need in order to sustain ourselves. And I mean, I'd actually argue that you can sustain yourself with a number of things. I mean, there can be, you can derive sustenance from, there are people that live off mud cakes, in Africa, and manage to, and I'm not recommending anyone does that, but I think the greater issue here is why they're actually doing this thing, and
bugs.
Well, yeah, and it's also how they're doing it. I mean, they basically introduce these into snack foods, right? And I'm wanting to know, are people going to know that they're eating bugs? Because the last thing you want is be getting your like a pack of Doritos and then finding out that it has bugs in this stuff. It's kind of like how not long ago they introduced genetically modified foods into the
well, they're going to start making meat out of not meat.
But
they're going to make it genetically modified meat.
Well, the problem I had with that, this is something that happened in California. There was a bill, right, where they passed this thing. And I don't have a problem if people want to have genetically modified foods, right? But the issue is that they didn't even want to disclose this in the ingredients. So people wouldn't know if they're eating genetically modified foods. Yeah. And the last thing you want is a situation where you're eating bugs and you don't want it. That way, and the government starts advocating for you to do this as a way of reducing carbon emissions. So that's the greater issue.
Let me ask you a question.
I'll just say this, and then we can go back to it, because I wanted to address your whole point about the health issue. Because fundamentally, and look, this is pretty much. I feel like I'm on the mainstream saying this kind of stuff because they always say the science is settled, but it is well established that as far as the nutrients that you need in order to sustain yourself,
you can get it from a bug.
Well, no, yes, you can get it from a bug, but you can get it from also foods of the earth. I mean, I have basically been on a plant-based diet all my entire life, and I'm fit as a fiddle, bro. And there are many civilizations have been doing this kind of stuff. It comes down. I mean, people make the argument in regards to what is going to maximize your health, but purely from a health level, you don't need to eat bugs to be healthy, obviously. And I make the argument comes with a whole bunch of other problems in terms of parasites and so forth. And you actually don't need to eat animals in order to be healthy either. Yeah. So the real question is why they're pushing this stuff, and do you have knowledge of what's in it?
Well, let me ask you this. If you were to eat a bug as a vegan, would that mean that you're killing an animal?
Yeah, the insects, last time I checked, are animals, absolutely.
Okay,
well, you wouldn't be killing the animal if you, just to be specific, right? If you eat a bug that's already dead, you're not. But the whole idea is you want to avoid supporting organizations that do things that you don't support, and that's fundamentally.
But would you say bugs or like bigger animals are more important? Surely bigger animals are more important than bugs.
Well, I have a preference, absolutely, in the same way that I view most human beings to be more important than most animals. I mean, I have biases. I love dogs. The fundamental principle I have is that I don't have the right to violate the life of any sentient thing.
Yeah.
As Optimus Prime once said, "Freedom is the birthright of all sentient beings." He didn't sound like that. That sounds like King Juffy Juffer, but he sounded deep and rich. I wanted to put that across. But it's not about who I value more. It's about whether or not I think I have the right to end the life of the sentient being.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, I love a steak myself, and I love all that stuff. And I mean, everyone. To be honest, I couldn't really care less on what people want to do and what they want to eat. I could not care less about your I think your right to choose what you want to eat is for me doesn't affect me at all. As in, I don't like some people would then come back and say, well, actually, meat really is needed and. I don't care. I know that I like eating meat. I believe, according to my beliefs, that I'm allowed to. According to say what the Bible says, it does talk about animals being there to be eaten. So that's where I stand with that.
Can I just interject on that? Because it also says in the Bible, like before I want to say the earth was essentially for original sin, right? That we actually lived in an Eden where there was essentially we wouldn't be eating animals. It was basically a vegan
beforehand.
So I would say that the ideal, and this is what it always comes down to me, to me. I mean, would a loving God want to see the slaughter? Because the thing is, these beings, like if you've seen what happens to a dog, right? Yeah. They're obviously beings that have the capacity for compassion and whatnot. Would a loving God want to see animals suffer in this kind of way?
Definitely not suffer. And I understand what it comes down to. There's suffering that's put upon animals. In mass production, but bloody hell, do they taste good?
Yeah, and look, that's the one argument I kind of have to submit to. I mean, at least you're being real about it. It tastes good, but like to me, when people, because this is the issue I have, right? When people say that, well, it says this in my book. I mean, you could play that with anything. I mean, and the thing is, you can be selective about it, right? Because I know you're a God-fearing Christian person, but there are plenty of things within the Bible that I'm sure a lot of people would frown on, like it's wrong to. I mean, they pretty much advocated for slavery at a point in the Bible. And granted, we have the New Testament now, right? But back in the Old Testament, they had a whole bunch of things. And the God that was prescribing these things and the kind of punishment for it would, in the views of a lot of people, not be the most beneficent God.
You've got the Old and the New, and then you've got the Old and the New Covenant as well, which one supersedes the other. So you've also got a lot of that stuff and the complete change from going from the law to going to the spiritual side. You know, we went from being the law, which was sacrificing an animal for the sins of mankind, literally killing. God said, kill an animal, slit their throat, and their blood being shed was a sacrifice. So there's a lot of stuff that
we did that with humans as well. There's
that's where the sacrifice of Jesus comes in, being the sacrifice of a man who is God for mankind. It makes complete sense when you think about it. You go from the lamb being the original example in the law, an innocent being that didn't deserve to get slaughtered, that got slaughtered because the blood had to be shed, and then you went to a man who is God in human form that got slaughtered for something he never did, which was the only way that you could cross between sin being broken. And it makes sense, and it makes complete sense when you think about it like that.
Well, to be honest, it sounds kind of fucked up to me. Like the idea of needing to let's start with a level that I think we can agree on, because this is something that I know you feel very strongly about. At least I think you do, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of I believe that self-sacrifice is altruistic. That's actually a Christian tenet, you know, like
definitely.
Sacrifice.
Turn the other cheek
but like being willing to actually do things for those that you care about, sacrificing yourself. This is a tenet that we find within Christianity. But it's when people force this stuff on you, right? Like if someone was wanting to sacrifice, like if, let's say, a group of people wanted to sacrifice Dick Jones, you know, to save all the sins of all the people in the world, you know, like it'd be one thing if Dick Jones wanted to do that, right? I'd be like, please don't sacrifice yourself, Dick. But when someone else forces you to do that stuff, that's just weird.
Well, it was never like it's really hard to kind of. It was never
they forced Jesus, right? According to the scriptures.
But also Jesus and God and the Holy Ghost are one of the same. So ice, water, and steam is the example. So they are one, but they're also three. So the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, they're one, but also three. So some people would argue that God and Jesus are the same person being, but we can't understand that, because all I know is you had to have, you know, God in it. The thing is, the part of the sacrifice too, and the argument behind it as well, is the fact that God came down in a human body and said, I will go through what you've gone through as a human, and then not sin the whole time I'm here, and go through what you've gone through. So understand every temptation you have as a human. Not give in to those temptations, then be sacrificed for your sake. Because you know, unless you are perfect, you can't take the sacrifice. So, I mean, that in itself really makes you think about what it is as well to be a Christian and believe in God, where, you know, and what that actually means as well. You know?
And the fact that he was doing it himself, like voluntarily, like he knew what he was getting himself into, just chose to do that.
Absolutely, and it's the only thing that would save mankind. I mean, it's not just like I'm sacrificing myself; it's saving mankind.
Sure, I hear what you're saying.
So
just so we're clear, I was just making the issue like it's just very different when someone forces that upon you. It's one thing if you want to do it, you're Jesus Christ. All right, you know, I'll let you, you know, take me, but I just find it weird when people, like, this is the history of the world. I mean, the ancient Aztecs, Mayans, and many other cultures would sacrifice
has always been
people,
a part of it, yeah.
Yeah, no, people by force, right?
By force, yeah.
In order to make the rains come for the crops and all this kind of stuff, superstitious beliefs and so forth. And it just seems like, at least from a moralistic standpoint, right, to sacrifice the few for the many, that seems to be like a really weird thing to do.
But it is part of our DNA as human beings to have that there. So either you've got what you'd say is the noble sacrifice being on the good side, being God's sacrifice and what was done back then, and then you've got the inverted sacrifices that are made, say, on the demonic satanic side, which is inverted. Essentially, the idea is that whatever God brings in gets inverted by Satan. Therefore, the sacrifices they make are for the wrong reason. So they'll sacrifice human beings against their will.
Sure.
It's just a copy of what they're doing, but blood's still spilt in order for them to get something back, which is power, which is obviously not what the sacrifice from God was about. It was about breaking people free from...
Sure, but the core theme, though, between those two types of sacrifices is that you're sacrificing by force. Now, granted, you said that, the satanic side of things is to sacrifice, people by force for demons and all this negative evil, that kind of stuff, for the wrong reason. But even sacrificing someone by force for the greater good, for the entire collective, right, is still, like, the act in of itself is not a good thing. Now, granted, because in terms of, like, the outcome, that's very subjective on what is good. Because when you apply this in the real world, what people have different ideas of what good and evil is. Like, some people think it'd be good, to just an example, like to force everyone to take jabs and all that kind of stuff because it's going to be better, save lots of people, and other people will think it's bad because of X and Y, right? But I think unless you have a consent-based system of morality, then you can justify anything. So to me, it always comes down to whether or not, like, the core should be whether or not it is actually forced or it is. I think the most important tenet of your religion, Christianity, is, because this is the basis of what we find in common law, is the idea of free will, choice, freedom, being able to decide how you live. This is why consent is so important. And when that's taken away from you, whether it's by rulers like kings or queens or governments, that becomes a weird thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, you should always have the choice to do what you want to do.
You
should always have the free will.
Provided you're not harming anyone. That's what I believe.
Well, then you get the consequences for that. The consequences come with every decision you make.
Tricky.
Free will is a free will, but you still have consequences with your free will.
Sure. But yeah, that's enough waxing all of the moral philosophy stuff. Let's get into some stuff. I feel like we're losing some people here. Let's get into some stuff some people can relate to. Did people in the Bible eat animals? We just covered that. But from what I understand, I'm no expert here. This was after the first sin or something like that. But
they did, yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so here's some other things I wanted to get into, Matt. So Queen Elizabeth II just passed away.
Yeah. And
I find things like this interesting. Like I obviously don't wish any ill on anyone whatsoever, but it shows just how it just shows just the mindset of people. Like the fact that from what I understand, so many people still mourn the death of the Queen. Not that they shouldn't show respect for any individual, but when it kind of got me to look more about what goes on in the UK in terms of the set of laws that apply for, let's say, the Queens, the Kings, the royalty, right? The fact that the people still pay a tax for the royal family. The fact that they're supposed to be treated in a particular way, like you can't. I think you have to wear gloves, if I'm not mistaken, if you're going to shake their hand. But just all of these rules that apply to them, and it's so weird because we're in the 21st century and we still have this aristocracy. We're supposed to have this double standard for these people, these elite.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel about that whole thing?
I mean, it's an interesting one because I think there's a level of respect that you should still have for someone who's passed away, regardless of whether or not they deserve it. I've heard a lot of different things on a lot of sides saying the Queen did this, she was involved in this.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know where I stand with the Queen and the royal. I'm not at all about this kind of system where people are better than others, but once again, it's part of history. It's also been a big part of who we are as humans since the start of time. So I think I don't agree with some of the disrespect that's directed towards the monarchy based on it being like, well, you're just straight out evil and you're not allowed to have that you're not allowed to have that respect as, because the monarch has existed for a long time, so there's a cultural element there that exists within the...
Sorry, just go. When you mention that it's been part of who we are for a long time, what are you talking about there specifically?
I mean, like, even if you want to go back all the way to before the Bible times, or during those times, you always had rulers, and you always had,
kings, queens.
like, whether it was wrong or right, or whether people got treated like shit at the bottom, and it's always existed. So you have to always have respect for it, and always will exist.
Well, it's why. But the thing is, just because something has been for a long time doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right.
That's there's a term for that in terms of like fallacies. That's like an appeal to tradition fallacy or something along those lines. Because you're right, it has been a product of most of the ancient world. It's called the divine right of kings.
Yeah.
The basic idea is that essentially, call them what you will, God's essentially gave favor to these rulers and so forth in order to essentially lead the way, and as a result, they were supposed to be in these positions of power. Now, my view on this is actually more esoteric, because I think that what these people were calling gods were actually not gods. And this goes into a lot of like crazy conspiratorial stuff. I'm not sure if TikTok is the right avenue for this, but I will say this. It's interesting to note that in the United States, specifically, then this applies to many other countries, but let's just take the United States. You can trace back pretty much every single president of the United States, barring one, I forget his name, but basically pretty much all of the presidents have had a direct lineage to Charlemagne and King John of England. And it's interesting that, and this was discovered because a school kid was doing a project, wanted to find out a relationship to
You mean Charlemagne the artist?
No. Yeah, Charlemagne the god. No, this is Charlemagne, like I was a ruler. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, I'm talking about having connections to royalty, like all of these presidents and so forth. And it shows that even outside of the royalty, like the monarchy, we're still continuing this thing, right? And this actually it even gets more in depth than that, because when you can trace this back to King John, right?
Yeah.
I think he's the first king of England. I don't know, something like that, right? But what's even more interesting is that if you follow the lineage, right, all of these kings can be traced back to the first Sumerian kings, right? Yeah. And this is fucking crazy. Oh, sorry, did I use the F words here? But I find this really interesting because it kind of supports this, like the ancient Sumerians, like they had their whole... They have this notion of the gods, right? Like they have these writings called the cuneiform writings, right? They speak about their gods and so forth. And basically, it's just a very interesting story because you have a look at what they were referring to as gods, and quite frankly, they do not seem like gods to me. It seems like some kind of like non-human entity, right? That has come and this is what they're basically... I mean, they're talking about people... They're referred to as the Anunnaki, and essentially they set up the whole rulership within this part of the world, and it was also applied in many different parts of the world.
I'm sure so I think plenty of them were involved.
I just think what people refer to as gods, is who are you calling God here? Yeah. Like, are you paying homage to some being that is perhaps just a ruler from a different planet or something like that? And I know this sounds really fanciful, no doubt. But I just think it's weird the fact that so many people follow this sense of patronage to rulers,
Definitely. Yeah, no,
because of an old age tradition that they don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I just think with the whole Queen thing, I mean, she did actually die on my birthday as well, which was...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that was your birthday.
So she was 96. This is what I found interesting. She was 96. I was born in 96, and she died on my birthday. So, like, to me, I was like, well, that makes me king then. You know what I'm saying? King Dick instantly.
Well,
I was just I am
the
king
synchronicities of that. Richard obviously is that.
Well,
first
she's
king,
stolen
right?
my fucking birthday now. She's
the new king. Long live King Richard.
Well, I'm just hoping now that I get a public holiday on my birthday.
Well, you know, they made a it's a once-off thing. They're actually making a public holiday for the people in the UK.
Yeah, for us here too, we get the we get the 22nd off. Yeah, to mourn.
We get the 22nd off. I mean, that doesn't really affect me because I'm independent business person.
Unreal, yeah.
It is pretty cool. But speaking of some Australian politics, right? We got one viewer at the moment or two, so I don't know if this is going to interest you all, to interest the people that are abroad right now. But we got some elections coming on again. So apparently, our Lord and Savior Dan Christ Andrews is on the verge of being reelected after he's kept kept us all nice and safe in our homes, right, under under lock in this convict country. I honestly, I gotta say, I think it's insane the fact that he's up for re-election, because like basically, it's absolutely wrong, because everything that they did was so wrong. It's unbelievable, and the fact that we're pretending it's okay. Yo, what's happening, Carrie? What's happening? Just responding to a few of
what up
texts here. Let us know if you're in Australia, because we would love to know what you think about what's going on in Australia, because a lot of people, you know, they have their views on lockdowns, all that kind of stuff, but I know a lot of people, when they hear what the Melbournians went through, they're like, yeah, you guys had it rough.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, we did have it pretty rough. Yeah. I mean, in my suburb, Oakley, there's a girl, you guys may have seen this video, it went viral on the internet, that was being strangled, essentially being pushed down and strangled because she had an exemption for mask and didn't want to wear it.
Yeah.
That's some crazy stuff.
I saw that.
Yeah, and the kind of like things that a lot of the police officers were willing to implement just because they were following orders, like... I've never been cool with that stuff, man.
No, absolutely not. I think what happened was disgusting, and it really did go all over the world. And a lot of people all around the world did see it and thought, you know, what's going on here? You know, how can they allow this?
You know what Daniel Andrews said as for his justification for all this stuff? This is one of the things he said, that look, it wasn't the government that locked everyone down; it was the virus. That's
well,
like,
he's got someone to blame. At least.
I know, it's just so freaking it's insane. It's like me beating the shit out of someone. It's like, well, I didn't do it. You made me angry. Oh no, it was because someone. I don't want to go there, but like, can you imagine what a rapist saying that, look, he didn't rape the person, it was like the chemicals in his body that did it, or the fact that the girl was wearing inappropriate clothing. Like the idea of someone not taking accountability for things that they are instigating and wanting to blame some inanimate, unconscious thing like a virus. It's just new levels of insanity.
Absolutely, no, it's
So welcome to the clown world.
Blaming a virus is ridiculous, but I mean that's what they did the whole time, didn't they? They just blamed anything they could other than themselves.
Absolutely, and I honestly think that we're living in a unique age, because whereas a lot of the times you see these great calamities take place in the world, you don't often understand just how insane they are until you look back in hindsight. But I think what we're going through over the last few years, and some of the things to those of us that can really see through the, a lot of the narratives and whatnot, I think it's a special moment, because we can really be conscious about the fact that we're living in a time that is going to live on in infamy throughout history.
Definitely.
We're reaching the technological singularity. This is supposed to be an age where we're going to be seeing this advancement of artificial intelligence and so forth, and we're on the rise of so many different things. Like we're at a point where we have the ability to completely destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons and all these amazing technologies, but we also have the potential to reach different planets. I mean, we have Elon Musk that is on the verge of traveling to Mars, and they're actually on the verge of, I think in our lifetime, they may find a way to extend the human life, or even...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel about all that kind of stuff, man?
Look, I don't think we should be trying to play God at the end of the day.
We already are.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We are in a lot of ways, but I think
stem
trying
cells
to make yourself live forever and be immortal is very stupid, and it's just not going to work out in the right way. I mean, I don't see how someone can take their soul or attempt to put their soul into a robot body and say that's their consciousness there.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen.
I agree.
The person still won't be in that body. They're going to be somewhere else, and then they're going to put a consciousness there that isn't actually that person, which is, I don't know how they're going to do that.
I think the very concept of consciousness is not well understood by the scientific community. I think they can replicate this with zeros and ones. Like there's this idea that they've already transferred the consciousness of a cat into a computer. This is, I've heard like reputable people within the realm of technology and so forth speak about this, and I'm like, well, it's. Have you seen this TV show? It's called I forget. I think it's AI or something like that. It's a Westworld.
Yeah,
it's freaking amazing.
I've heard of it. I've never really watched it though.
It's fascinating as fuck, because basically, the first one. I mean, it's without ruining, spoiler alert, not really, but basically, the scenario is you have like a theme park, and you have essentially AI that are so sophisticated you can't tell the fact that they're human, and it makes you think, like, at what point do you overlook the fact that something is is not real. Because, like, imagine if, I mean, it's so easy for people just to train themselves into thinking, oh, I can treat something this way because it's not human, it's not real. They did this not that long ago, man. Back in the 18th century, apparently, black people were 3/5 human. They were looked at as not being human. This is what allowed them to be treated as chattel. In fact, this is where we get the word cattle from. Essentially, they would be treated as less human beings, entities, right? And because the mindset, in fact, that you have a look at the science of the time, and they had these well-written documents to explain how the mind of a black person was so different, and they had this different brain makeup, and essentially, even though they appear to be learning things, they're just imitating like animals. And they had well-written science to explain this, but people had bought into the idea that they weren't actual human beings. They were 3/5 human, not, this is what it said within the Constitution, right? And therefore, the way that they treated these people was such. The way they treated these beings was such that...
It's crazy to think about that, isn't it?
It's very crazy.
That can happen, you know. And it's just based on what's being written there and people are believing it.
Yeah, man. But it kind of shows how easy it is for us to fall into a way of thinking that allows us to go ignore our instincts.
Yeah.
You know, just because we're told something is so.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and like I try to think about how it's happening now. You know, like at what point do you define reality? Like, is reality what we perceive it to be or what we're told it is? Like, if we were told right now that we couldn't leave our homes and there was this war going on outside of a house or the country, right? That's, I guess, more believable. And we're seeing all of this put forth on TV, like, how do we know that is even true? And this is the world that we're moving into. Like, it's so hard to question things because of the nature of the media that sometimes it's like, I wonder I know that I'm having the wool pulled over my eyes, you know, that I can only imagine how more complex it's going to be in the future, right?
Yeah. Oh, who even knows where we're going to be in the future, like with the technology they have and the AI and the way that they can now, you know, make videos that are fake, essentially, and you don't know if they're real or fake anymore. What are they called again? Those
deep fakes.
Yeah, deep fakes, you know, and that sort of thing. And they've done that on purpose as well, just in case there's stuff that comes out that's incriminating or something that will make a government or a figure in the government look bad. They can just say it's deep fake now. That's another way you can rebuttal something now is you can just say, well, that's fake, well, that's real, and you don't know what's what anymore.
Exactly.
So there's a confusion there too now as to what's real and what's fake.
What's real, what's fake,
media in general.
I feel like we're moving into those times, man.
Absolutely, and it's going to get to a point where you can't even tell if something's deep fake. Like I watched,
or if someone's real. Like imagine if you see someone, like you're going on a date with a girl and you're thinking, wait, is this a real woman? Or is she
a sex robot?
Yeah, or is she a woman that has male features and has changed herself to look like a woman?
Is this
oh wait, that's now. You know,
is this a woman or is this a sex robot? And and then you realize they're both the same. Yeah,
thing. But check this out. It's gotten to the point. Like I'm on Tinder, right, and I'm often swiping at these like women. They're women, right? I'm legit. I'm down with the cause. Yeah. And they're like they've gone through all the treatment, right? And like it's so good now that you can go through all of the treatment and you can get all these fake implants. I mean, what's next? I mean, imagine if you can. It's only getting better and better because
Well, you'll be able to extend your dick at least. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but like 10 years ago, I could pick it out and be like, yeah, look at the Adam's apple. Now I'm like, I can't tell. Yeah. Is this a woman or is this? Oh, god damn it! Look, what the fuck is this?
This means it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And what do you think?
Not really.
What do you think about the neural? Have you heard of the Neuralink implants?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is trying to do that. Yeah, put a chip in your brain to apparently fix certain neurological diseases and issues that people have. But that's obviously going to be abused and used to make these sort of sex robots that we're talking about and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, not so much the sex robots, but how it could be abused. Because because this is what always happens, right? Like some new technology is implemented, people think it's freaking amazing, and then the government say it's so amazing that, hey, we're going to force everyone to take this thing. Yeah. Everyone wants to take this thing, right? And then imagine the kind of stuff they can do with it, right? It's like,
oh yeah, they can probably read your thoughts,
Yeah, and this is, I mean, have a look at Facebook, getting all this data on people and so forth, and I mean, you reach a point now where I watched a TV show that blew my mind recently called Ghost in the Shell, and it just made me go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait a second. And then I saw references to 1984, and I'm like, okay, the person that wrote this thing, he knew. This is not by chance that I'm having all of these thoughts about this TV show, because it's been created for this reason. And it kind of shows the worst case scenario of what can happen when governments get out of control. Everyone gets caught up on this kind of technology and is basically tapped into the matrix, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just really Orwellian, because basically these people have these cyber brains, they call, and essentially they can be hacked. Like, imagine, I mean, it's one thing having a computer, some external device, and it has problems. Like, you get virus, you download too much porn and your computer stuffs up, right?
Yeah.
But imagine if that's hooked up to your brain, and now someone puts a virus in your computer, and now you're seeing things, right, that are not actually there, because you have this, basically you're tapped into the cyber brain now, and basically the governments or hackers can make you see stuff that's not there. They can manipulate your mind, everything you're seeing, because now this cyber brain is hooked up to all of your senses. So there's no distinction between what you experience within the five-sense reality and what is created within these cyber brains. And it just blurs the lines between reality.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely.
Virtual reality.
That's where we're headed, and that's what's scary is the Neuralink and the AI and not knowing, I guess, where you're going to stand with, like going on a date with someone who's,
Yeah, man.
a male or a female. I mean,
absolutely.
That's just part of the fun, though, isn't it? That's kind of
part of the fun. Yeah, it's like you go on a date with someone. You're trying to take your clothes off. It's like, okay, what are we gonna get here? We're gonna get a Dick Jones. Or are we gonna get something else? Oh, okay, yeah, that's what you meant when you said woman. Okay, yeah, back in my time, we had a different word for that. But times, they are certainly changing, and I guess the tricky thing is being able to. I love the idea of being able to have conversation, at least express my thoughts, and I think it's very important for the movement of a society to have. I mean, this is one of the reasons why the United States flourished, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all this diversity, and when diverse people that are moving, like they have the same heart, they still want the benefit of society, have their different opinions, and they work together. Typically the best ideas come out. Mm-hmm. But when you're at war with each other and you're not even willing to listen, it can be very, very tricky. Definitely. And it leads to a lot of war.
No,
and
absolutely,
I think what is happening right now is really concerning, because we saw what happened last year with the whole George Floyd situation, the social unrest
last
there.
year or the year before?
The year before, yeah.
How quick does time go, though?
Absolutely.
Yeah? 2 years almost.
And we're seeing, and just recently, you saw what happened with the whole Joe Biden announcement, right?
Yeah,
yeah. He's going, and look, I know a lot of people side with this kind of stuff, but anytime I see a speech from a presidential official saying that he's coming after half of the population, right? Because whereas they always characterize these people as being extremists and only representing a small minority, the reality is that there is a massive divide right now. Like at least 40-50% of the population of the United States are not down with the current narrative and establishment, and
at all,
it's only going to lead to a tremendous amount of discord and eventually violence. And there's this JFK quote that I love mentioning, and it kind of embodies what's going on right now. Those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable, or something along those lines,
Yeah.
And obviously, if we're not even able to have these conversations with each other, and the next alternative is for people to express themselves through violence,
Absolutely, and that's what they want. They're trying to force a civil war by dividing the country in every way they can and demoralizing the country, which is what they've done with Joe Biden, bringing out a mentally impaired dude with Alzheimer's out there and just kind of gaslighting the whole country, basically, is what they're doing.
Joe Biden bringing out a mentally impaired person? You mean
Joe Biden?
He is the mentally impaired person.
Yeah, he's the mentally impaired person with Alzheimer's that's basically obviously on heavy drugs, reading a teleprompter that he can't properly read. And
I'll tell you what, his last speech was really convincing. The one I saw was like, that sounded like some presidential shit.
But he's just, who knows, like we're going back to the whole deep fake thing. Whoever knows who's on that stage, it could be like I've seen people say that he's wearing a mask, it's someone underneath, or it's Jim Carrey Perry wearing a mask. Like, who knows? I don't know if it goes that deep, but at the same time, you know, like
we're probably getting there.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
But it's just gaslighting the country. I mean, there's enough people in the country that if they came together with their guns, they could go against the government and have an uprising. But it's going to be messy. And then once that happens, you know, then you've got a government that's able to go against everyone. They're more organized, and they'll have the whole military behind them, and they can just call, you know, well, like they're already trying to do, start war on a certain, they say minority, probably majority of the country that supports Donald Trump, or at least half of the country, you'd think. You know, that's what they do, though. They did it in World War II with the Jews, and they're going to just target anyone that's a threat.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, man. I mean, I tend to be. It's interesting because I always tend to get characterized as being like a Trump supporter or something like that, just because unless you say that you vehemently hate the guy or something like that, people already put you in a pigeonhole. And the truth is, like, I have issues with the left and the right. Like, I am completely like, I'm all about choice, freedom. I don't believe in any kind of authoritarianism. I'm basically dead center when it comes to this stuff. Like, I'm as libertarian as it gets. I take issues with many of the things the leftists do, as well as what the conservatives do. But I feel as if people always want to put you on a side in this situation, and there is no middle ground.
No.
And it's reaching the point where, it seems like it's understandable, because here's the thing. Part of me wants to be the diplomat. This is my personality type, right? Like, I'm the campaigner, I'm the rainmaker. I always want to be the diplomat. But there comes certain topics that you feel so passionate about, right? That I feel like the idea of sitting along the fence means that you're not passionate about it, you know?
Are you
like
an ENFP, are you?
Yeah, ENFP.
Same.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, man, you know? Us great artists and campaigners and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the issues that are going on right now, you know, like, I absolutely believe in bodily autonomy, right? And I believe that I have a right to decide what I put in my body, obviously.
What goes in his ass.
Yeah, absolutely. That too. Yeah, that too. I mean, I don't swing that way, but if someone wants to have, you know, because I know a lot of you conservative Christian types are like, you know, hey, look, you can't be doing that. But I know, I think it's different, not liking that, but not wanting to, but wanting to, like, prevent someone from doing that, wanting to punish them. That's something very different, right? And I think you take on the mindset where it's like, look, I don't approve of what you're doing, but you should be allowed to do it. Yeah, that's my attitude, you know? But it was when people are telling you, like, they're encroaching on you and telling you that you can't leave your home, you can't even leave the country, right?
Yeah. Unless,
of course, you take our magic potion. Then it's like, at what point, because I always use this analogy because people don't see it this way. If I went on a date with you, right? You pretended to be some girl, right? I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you come back and I come back to your house, right? As soon as I get in there, you freaking lock the door. And you say, hey, listen, mate, there's a war going on. I can't do your accent that well, but you're like, yeah, listen. And basically you're telling me I can't leave your house because it's very dangerous. And, you know, I just have to sit on the couch and watch all of this
Sounds
this
like
propaganda.
A fantasy of yours.
No, and look, you know, like, however, it's for my own good. You won't let me there, and look, but unless, of course, you have sex with me, because once you have sex with me, you'll be safe.
Had to frame it like
no,
that.
well, yeah, absolutely. It's like, well, I want to leave. No, I'm sorry, it's too dangerous. Just have sex with me. No, I don't want to. All right, well, we'll just stay here. Let's watch all these documentaries, make you understand why you need to have sex with me.
Jeffrey
right?
Dahmer documentaries.
Yeah, that.
It would probably be more the other way around. If I go on a date with Chrishell, he'd be wearing a sexy dress. I go to his place. He's like, look, if you want to leave here alive, you must be sodomized.
But let me finish my analogy, because people are like, what on earth are you talking about here? But here's the thing. Imagine this situation. You can't leave your home unless you have sex with this person, unless you do something that they want you to do. Well, that would be called rape. I mean, it's basically coercion, right?
That's what.
How is that any different to what the government does on a larger scale?
Different.
Yeah, it's like you stay in your home. You can't leave unless, of course, you take this magic potion.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's for your own good. Can't leave the country. Can't leave your home. If you do, well, we'll beat you up. You'll get this fine.
Yeah.
And then people say, "Oh, but you have a choice."
No. Yeah.
Yeah. No. There are laws that were set up in order to prevent this kind of stuff. Oh, we lost a lot of people. I guess a lot of people didn't like that analogy.
It was on for a while, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because it's so divisive. Like I feel like we reached a point now where people are either on team, you must submit to the to the great state because they know what's best. Daniel Andrews, do the right thing, or you're an anti-waxer.
You need to do an interact where you can ask a question and say like,
All right, let's wind this thing down because we've gone over the 1 hour mark here, and we're just we're going into some crazy French territory now. But let me see if we can just wind this thing down. It's probably too hard. I know we had a lot of questions in regards to my thoughts on. Oh, did people in the Bible eat animals? I think you already answered that.
Yeah, we already answered that, and that person's gone, I think, already. So, but no, they did definitely.
But I would say that's before the original sin thing, and then as to whether or not that's rice because it was in the Bible, that's a whole another can of worms. Vegans wear leather shoes a lot. Well, they're ethical vegans, and then they're dietary vegans, and I don't even like calling myself a vegan per se. I just call myself like a human being, purely because the ideology involves a lot of other stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, like just the attitude towards like a lot of vegans don't even believe in masturbating and things like that, because you're killing but anyway, that's another stuff. But look, actually, most vegans that would call themselves vegans actually take it upon themselves to avoid using animal products as well. Like classically, it comes from the idea comes from the Vegetarian Society in the UK, and basically Donald Watson, when he coined the term, he was basically extending the practice of the Vegetarian Society, where they would eat a plant-based diet and they would take it upon their own conscience as to whether or not they wanted to avoid using animal byproducts and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, most vegans, I would say generally, at least the ones that call themselves vegans, they'll tell you that they're vegan. They typically try to avoid wearing leather and shoes and so forth, and as do I. But in any event, chocolate has tons of bugs. Chocolate has tons of bugs? Look, I come from Ghana, West Africa. We're the biggest exporter of cocoa, which is the main ingredient in chocolate. So we obviously know a fair bit about chocolate. And look, I'm made out of chocolate, so obviously I know what I'm talking about. And last time I checked, chocolate doesn't have bugs.
I think they mean when they, get all of the...
People,
it makes sense.
But people always make that argument like, bugs are dying when you create... Maybe. It doesn't necessarily require that. Like, you're making an appeal to what might happen, potentially. It's like saying that, look, if you build a road, well, people are going to have accidents, and therefore, on that road, therefore you're creating the problem.
New messages.
And I'm like, well, not really. That's like you're making an appeal to what might happen. Like, unless, of course, what you're doing is inherently right or wrong. Like, it's not something that I would call definitively an immoral thing, But people, I say this because a lot of people make the argument with the whole vegan things like, oh, you're killing animals by eating plants, and not necessarily, just because there's the potential for clearing of land, right, and harvesting, that there's the potential for animals to die accidentally, doesn't mean that you're directly doing that. Like, you're making an appeal to potentiality, and then you're equating that with actually directly paying for someone to slaughter an animal. Very different things. But then my thoughts on that. Okay. Dick, is there anything that you wanted to say as we wind this thing down?
Because messages.
Yeah, because I'm gonna this.
Not particularly. Not that I can think of. But
well, let's reiterate your single, amazing single. Who said you can't say that? Yeah. Clearly, we should have this as I'm gonna make this the feature in this because it's like we're talking about all the things that we're not supposed to be able to say, right?
Yeah,
no, that's brilliant. That's
perfect. That'll be good. You can find it on Spotify, find it on Apple Music. It's right in Dick Jones, Who Said I Can't Say That. Chuck it on your playlist. You'll love the song. It's unreal. Just keep listening to it and brainwash yourself with my music essentially, and just keep listening to it.
Absolutely. Dick Jones, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thanks
it's interesting speaking to you because you're more kind of like reserved. Like, I've just talk my mouth. Usually you're the kind of like alpha, kind of like...
Well, the thing is, there's so much stuff that I can't say.
Yeah, you're right.
And me being myself, you can't, because I will just say stuff that you can't say on... And then
you'll get me booted off TikTok, and then I'll hate you for it.
There's so much I can't say, so I just have to sit there and can't say. And this is what I hate, exactly my whole point. Who said I can't say? Like, you can't fucking say anything. See, I just can't even say fuck.
Yeah.
Because that's a bad word.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck that. You should be able to say whatever the fuck you want. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should still try to be nice.
Yeah,
but not at the cost of being fake in yourself. You know, you lose who you. People are so worried about losing people that they end up losing themselves by not being real.
100%. Yeah.
And
No, you got to be real and you got to say what you got to say. But I guess at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you're still walking on fine ice sometimes when you know, you try not to say certain things, and you know, it is what it is. But yeah,
absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. It has been a pleasure having Dick Jones, this legendary
being on your
entertainer,
your show,
scholar,
Thank you very much.
Wisdomatic brother.
And we've talked about a lot of different topics.
We've covered a lot of stuff, man. And ladies and gentlemen, really got to check out this guy's music. He is an amazing hip hop artist. I'm not just saying that. I really love your last track.
Appreciate
and a lot of your I love all your stuff, bro. And you're an actor, which I would love to see more of. Hopefully we can get back into the acting world. We can go back to some level of normalcy in the next few years. Hopefully it won't take too long, and we can get back to doing what we love doing, entertaining people.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to if people want to get a hold of you,
TikTok Richard Ray Jones.
Yeah, I'll be sure to add lots of clips of us talking about this, so you'll be able to check out Dick Jones and find him on the social medias and whatnot. You guys can find me. I am everywhere. Obviously, you can see me serenading all you beautiful senoritas and the fellas. I don't discriminate. Usually on the daily. Or you can check out my podcast. I'm on iTunes, Spotify. You know the deal. You guys can follow me on Patreon if you feel so inclined. I really appreciate anyone that wants to support me. Send a donation. Any reviews that you want to send my way. You guys are absolutely amazing. Be sure to give us a follow. Tell your mom. Tell your friends. Drop us the comments. Let us know what it is. Until next time, kisses, hugs, and belly rubs. Dick Jones, you are a fucking legend, mate.
Like this notion of liberty, for example. What is liberty?
And I think that concept of the will is very important.
What the? Who says you can't build muscle in a vegan diet? What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
Bitcoin will not work as digital gold.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.
Everyone deserves the same chance, the same treatment, the same respect.
Soldiers for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar trying to settle the score, maintain it all.